Hi there guys, I'm Nikhil from GreedyTech, and in this video, I'll be unboxing the Realme X3 SuperZoom and giving you a quick hands-on review. So guys, here's the box. Now before we get started, here's the basic information. So Realme has launched this phone in India in two variants. Base variant starts at 28,000 rupees for 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. Next variant is priced at 33,000 rupees for 12GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. It's available in two colors, Arctic White and Glacier Blue, and we have the Arctic White color with 12GB of RAM. This phone here comes with a lot of cool features at just a starting price of 28,000 rupees. For starters, it has that SuperZoom periscope lens, which gives it up to 60x hybrid zoom and up to 10x optical zoom. You also get new nightscape mode, pro nightscape mode, starry mode, tripod mode, well, a lot of things related to cameras. Besides that, you also get a great display with punch-hole design, 120Hz refresh rate, a 30-watt dart charger, and a Snapdragon 855 Plus processor. So, a lot of cool stuff. Let's go on with unboxing. So this is how the overall packaging looks like. It comes in yellow just like other previous Realme phones. On the front, it says #1 quality smartphone brand, center, X3 SuperZoom, and finally the Realme branding. So far, box packaging has been really consistent from Realme. On the left side, we have the phone's complete name, Realme X3 SuperZoom. Same thing on the right side. At the top, we have the Realme branding. And at the bottom, some specs, box contents, and so on. Completely on the back, we have some of the highlighting features. That's mainly the processor, cameras, display, and cameras again. At the bottom, we have the IMEI numbers and so on. Now let's open it up. So first, we have a cardboard box. And inside that, we have some documentation and a soft silicone pouch. Next, we have the phone itself. Let me put it over here. Next, we have a USB Type-C charging cable and a 30-watt dart charger, which by the way is exactly like the OnePlus charger. And finally, a SIM card ejector. So these are all the contents of the box. Now let me just put everything aside and come back to the phone. So here's the phone in plastic wrapping. Let me remove that. And on the back side, we have some stickers with IMEI numbers. So this is how the phone looks on the back, and this is how it looks on the front. Now let me just try out the case. By the way, this is just a soft silicone case with a black tint to it. Now this is how the phone looks with the case on. It is a slightly raised lid for the camera module, so when you place the phone directly on its back, camera is still very well protected, something that I really appreciate. And it also has a raised lid for the display, so when you place your phone directly on its face, display is also pretty well protected. Now with all that said, this case can just give you some additional grip and prevent smudges, that's all, and it won't give you any drop protection. So if you're worried about dropping your phone, get a better case. By the way, phone definitely looks much more premium without the case. Even though this back panel is slippery, it feels great to look at and even hold in hand. Anyway, these are the rest of the specifications of this phone. On the back, this phone has a 3D quad curved glass with leading anti-glare technology and super smooth touch. And those lines might seem a bit exaggerating, but you really have to look at this phone, especially the back panel, to really admire it. It feels super smooth, just maybe like a pearl. Anyway, back to the phone. At the bottom, we have the Realme branding. On the front, we have a massive 6.6-inch IPS display with that punch-hole design for dual cameras with Full HD Plus resolution, 120Hz refresh rate, protected by a 2.5D curved Corning Gorilla Glass 5. Inside that punch-hole design, we have the dual selfie cameras, a 32MP primary selfie camera with f2.5 aperture and Sony IMX616 sensor with 80.4 degree field of view. Following that is an 8MP ultra-wide-angle selfie camera with f2.2 aperture and 105 degree field of view. On the top left corner, we have the camera module with 4 cameras, starting off with a 60x periscope lens with f3.4 aperture with 5x optical zoom and optical image stabilization. That's followed by a 2MP camera for taking macro shots, an 8MP ultra-wide-angle camera with f2.3 aperture and 119 degree field of view, and finally a 64MP primary camera with f1.8 aperture with Samsung GW1 sensor with 78.6 degree field of view. Well, that's a lot of specifications. Anyway, following that is a single LED flash, and it says AI quad camera. And above the display, we have just the earpiece, and below the display, it's completely plain. and the chin is kinda small. Now for the sides, on the right side it has just the power button which also acts like the fingerprint scanner. On the left side it has the volume buttons. Buttons are made of metal, they have a nice clicky feel to them. I just wish they were slightly more elevated. At the top it has just the secondary microphone for noise cancellation. And finally at the bottom it has a SIM card tray housing 2 nano SIM slots, and that's it, no SD card slot at all, followed by the primary microphone, USB Type-C charging port, and the speaker grill. By the way guys, this phone has just a single speaker, no stereo speakers, like the previous Realme X2 Pro. Now these are the rest of the specifications. Under the hood, it sports a Snapdragon 855 Plus processor with Adreno 640 GPU, 12GB of LPDDR4X RAM, and 256GB of UFS 3.0 storage. It also has liquid cooling system for better gaming experience and better performance. Right out of the box, it will be running Realme UI based on Android 10. Powering this device is a 4200 mAh battery, and it also comes with a 30-watt dart charger inside the box, which can completely charge your phone in less than an hour. Now this phone has a thickness of 8.9 mm and weighs 202 grams. Initial impressions, phone feels kinda thick and has a bit of weight to it. Nothing too bad, you can get used to it. So guys, those were the complete specifications. Now let me turn on the phone and set it up and come back to you in a second. So guys, this is how the phone looks once we turn it on and set it up. Let's check out the about page. So this phone has the new Realme UI based on Android 10, and as of now it has the July 2020 security patch, which is pretty good. And now for the storage, out of that 256GB of storage, we have about 237GB of space free for our user apps and user data. And out of that 12GB of RAM, we have about 8.86GB of RAM free right out of the box. Now let's check out the camera interface and all the camera features offered by this phone. So this is the default camera interface, and by default we are using the 64 megapixel camera on this phone. Over here we have all these toggles, and the leftmost one is for the wide angle camera, and as you can see it is pretty wide. Next one is 1x, that's where we are using the 64 megapixel camera. Next we have 2x, which is 2x digital zoom. We are still using the same 64 megapixel camera. Next we have 5x, which is where we are using that periscope lens. And finally 10x. Once again we are using that periscope lens. Even until now we are still using optical lens, but once you zoom in further, which is a combination of digital and optical or just hybrid zoom. So this phone can go up to 60x of SuperZoom. So that's all there is with all the cameras and zoom features. Besides that, we also have the regular dazzle color mode, which can be used with all the cameras. And on the right side, we have the regular portrait mode. And for the portrait mode, we can take a wide angle portrait mode or a zoomed in version of the portrait mode. And once again, just like other Oppo phones, we can change the amount of background blur effect we want before taking a portrait shot using the slider. And the same applies even for the wide angle portrait shot as well. Next we have a dedicated 64MP mode. Even though this phone has a 64 megapixel camera, by default it doesn't take a 64 megapixel picture. So for some reason, if you want to take a bigger 64 megapixel picture, you have to use this mode. Now let's go to video recording. So this is the video recording section. Once again, we can record video with the wide angle camera, primary camera, even with the periscope lens. And most interestingly, even once you start recording video, we can always switch between the cameras, which is something we rarely see on other phones. So that's video recording. Next, we can also record video with a background blur effect, and you can use that feature by enabling this toggle. And you can use the slider to change the amount of background blur effect you want while recording the video. We also have a new feature called Ultra Steady Mode, and you can access it from here, which simply stabilizes the footage. Footage from this mode is definitely much more stable than without Ultra Steady Mode. Next, we also have something called Ultra Steady Pro Mode, and you can access it from here, and you get a much further stable footage. I'll show you sample shots later. So these are all the features related to video recording. Next, we have Night Mode to take better pictures in low lighting conditions. Whenever lighting conditions are bad, automatically exposure time increases and it gives you better pictures. And this phone also supports night mode for the primary camera, wide angle camera, and even for the periscope lens. So that's definitely pretty cool. And besides that, we also have Pro mode in the night mode, which gives us some extra options which will allow us to take better pictures with manual control. And besides that, we also have two other options. One is starry mode, and you can access it from here. And once you take pictures in this mode, it gives you better pictures, especially while taking stars. And we also have tripod mode. If you have a tripod, if you're using a tripod, using this mode will definitely give you better results. Finally, if you go to the more section, we have some extra options. And most importantly, ultra macro mode. In this mode, we can take super close-up shots or the macro shots. Now this is the interface for the front-facing camera, and every time we switch to the front-facing camera, there's a cool animation going on over here, and that's a quick preview once again. So right now we are using the primary camera, and this one has a dual front-facing cameras. To switch to the wide-angle camera, you have a toggle over here. Now we are using the wide-angle camera. On the right side, we have the regular portrait mode, that's portrait selfies, and once again we can change the amount of background blur effect we want, even while taking portrait selfies. Next we have video recording, and on this phone we can record video with the primary camera or even with the wide angle camera. And once again we also have this feature to record video with background blur effect. Once again, here's the slider to change the background blur effect. Next we also have ultra steady mode even for front camera video recording, which is usually missing on other phones. And once again, as you can see, it is pretty stable. It's trying to stabilize the footage electronically. That's basically EIS. That's ultra steady mode. Finally, we have night mode even for the front camera, and it works with the primary camera and even with the wide angle camera. So you can get better selfies even in low lighting conditions. Finally, if you go to the more section, these are some extra camera related features for the front camera. So guys, those are all the camera related features, and now these are some sample shots. Now let's test the fingerprint scanner. I've already set it up, and here we go. By default, fingerprint scanner is set to soft touch. So whenever you try to touch the fingerprint scanner, it tries to read your fingerprint and unlock the phone if it succeeds. This feature is great when you try to unlock the phone, but it gets pretty annoying whenever you touch the fingerprint scanner accidentally with other fingers. Every time you touch with the wrong fingerprint, your phone vibrates, and after a few wrong tries, you'll have to enter the password manually, which can be irritating. So for that, I'll suggest you to go to settings, then to fingerprint settings, and change a little setting related to the fingerprint scanner, and that is screen off unlock. Set it to firm touch. Now once you do that, you need to physically press the power button to use the fingerprint scanner and unlock the phone. So once you select firm touch, no matter how many times you touch, when the display is off, it doesn't work. You have to actually press the button, and when the display is on, you can just touch it to unlock the phone. So this is something I would definitely recommend you to do. Now as for the fingerprint scanner's performance itself, it is pretty good, pretty fast, and definitely usable. Now let's test the face unlock feature. Once again, I've already set it up, and here we go. So that's pretty fast. In good lighting conditions, it is super fast. By the way guys, haptic engine on this phone is not that great. Every time it unlocks, we get a haptic feedback. It's a great feature, but the haptic engine itself isn't that great. It's not horrible, it's usable, but I wish it was slightly more better. Well, most of the phones are bad in this price segment. Now, even in low lighting conditions, face unlock is working really well. It is super fast. So guys, that was the face unlock feature. Once again, no complaints, works as expected. Now let's test the speaker loudness. This phone has just a single speaker at the bottom. So guys, that was the speaker loudness. It's just a mono speaker, so it's great for media consumption, ringtones and alarms. It is probably one of the loudest speakers that you can get in this price segment. Now let me just give you a quick walkthrough of all the important stuff on this phone. Well, the most important stuff will definitely be that SuperZoom with 60x zoom, and we've already covered that. Next interesting thing or unique thing about this phone would be this fingerprint scanner, which has been covered. And the next thing, or the next best thing about this phone, is that display. This phone has a display that supports 120Hz refresh rate, but by default, refresh rate has been set to auto, so that refresh rate changes automatically, tries to save some battery life. Personally, I'll suggest you to stick to 120Hz to get a consistent experience. So to change the refresh rate of your phone, go to display settings, scroll and select refresh rate. And from here, you can change your refresh rate. I set it to 120Hz. It affects the battery a little, but that's negligible. And in the display settings, you also have cool stuff like dark mode, which turns everything in your phone to dark mode. That also includes system apps like phone dialer, messages, and even some of the stock Google applications like Play Store and YouTube. And here we go, that's the YouTube. Besides all these stuff, there are a lot of cool features on this phone, a lot of gestures. We also have the navigation gestures from Android 10. And I made a completely dedicated video for all the best features offered by this phone, so check that out for more information. Now before I conclude, these are the benchmark scores. So guys, this is the new Realme X3 Super Zoom. Well, it is pretty similar to the Realme X3, except you get that extra Super Zoom lens, well, periscope lens. And besides that, it is pretty similar to the Realme X3. Well, is it really worth that extra money for that Super Zoom? Well, that's pretty subjective and completely depends upon you. Well, as for the phone, I must say that it's a very well built phone. I still wish Realme could have gone with an AMOLED display, but still, considering the price and other competition, I say it still does a pretty good job. We are still getting a previous generation processor, but considering that none of the flagships are in this price segment, I'd say it's the next best thing that you can get. Now when it comes to overall design and build, phone definitely feels slightly thicker. And as for the weight, it has a weight to it, doesn't feel too heavy, and the back definitely looks pretty great. That 3D curved glass with that prism effect definitely feels great. So honestly speaking, there really isn't much bad to talk about this phone. Realme's UI or the complete software experience of Realme phones or even the Oppo phones is something that I personally don't like, but with the latest Realme UI, it has been greatly improved. At least it's definitely more usable now. Right now, at the price this phone is being sold, this is definitely the best choice if you want the best performance. Well, besides performance, you also get great cameras, great battery life, and super fast charging speeds as well. Anyway guys, that's what I think about this phone. Definitely a great phone for the price. What do you think about this phone? Do let me know by commenting below this video, and if you're planning to buy this phone, use the link in the description. It always helps the channel. If you want us to make any specific video, tweet out to us with the hashtag AskGreedyTech on Twitter and we will try to make it as soon as possible. I'm Nikhil from GreedyTech signing off. Have a nice day.